You might think it's just a harmless itch, a small nuisance, a patch of dry skin, or maybe a new soap reacting oddly. But what if I told you that itch, yes, that tiny persistent sensation you keep brushing off, could be the first whisper of something far more serious? Especially if you're over 60, your body isn't just aging, it's adapting, shifting, and sometimes quietly alerting you to internal battles before any visible symptom appears. Today, we're peeling back the curtain on something most people ignore, something that could be the first and only warning sign of certain life-threatening conditions. 5 specific areas of the body, 5 mysterious itches that often go unnoticed until it's too late. Let me ask you something personal. Have you ever had an itch on your lower leg that just wouldn't go away, no matter how much lotion you applied? Or maybe a strange crawling sensation on your upper back, one you can't quite reach or explain? You tell yourself, it's nothing. You tell yourself it'll pass. But what if your body was trying to say something and you missed it? Welcome to a story that's not about fear, but about awareness. Because your body doesn't always scream when something's wrong. Sometimes it just itches. This isn't some horror story meant to panic you. It's a deeply researched, insight-driven guide to help you understand the quiet signals your body sends, especially in your senior years. Signals that have shown up time and time again in the lives of real people. People who thought it was nothing until it wasn't. And here's the shocking truth. Doctors, researchers, and patients across the world have noticed uncanny patterns in these symptoms. It's not about dry weather. It's not your laundry detergent. These are recurring itches, same spots, same stubbornness, that have one thing in common. They often precede cancer diagnoses. But here's what's more important. This isn't a video about cancer. It's a video about paying attention, about listening to what your body is trying to tell you before it becomes a scream for help. And trust me, what you learn today could save your life or the life of someone you love. So stay with me, because over the next several parts, we're going to walk through 5 of the most commonly overlooked early warning signs. 5 places where a persistent itch could mean more than meets the eye. And more importantly, we'll talk about why these spots matter, what cancers they're linked to, and how to tell the difference between a passing irritation and something more serious. We'll bring in the real stories of people who noticed something odd, trusted their instincts, and caught devastating diseases before they became untreatable. You'll learn how inflammation, immune response, and even bile salts can turn into subtle signals on your skin, and what questions you should ask your doctor the next time you're tempted to say, "It's probably nothing." Because that's the thing. Probably nothing is exactly how most life-changing stories begin. And you deserve to be the one who catches the story before it becomes a tragedy. This is the truth your skin is trying to tell you. Let's begin with the first spot, the one most of us ignore until it's too late. 1. The lower legs, the silent signal of lymphoma. It always starts small. A scratch here, a rub there, a faint tingle on your shin you chalk up to dry air, or maybe a change in the weather. You try some lotion, maybe switch soaps. You might even shrug it off completely, thinking it's just your age catching up with you. But what if the itch doesn't go away? What if it stays, night after night, creeping into your routine like an unwelcome guest that just won't leave? For many older adults, especially those over 60, persistent itching on the lower legs, specifically around the shins and calves, has been quietly surfacing in medical case studies as an early indicator of something most people wouldn't expect: lymphoma. That's right, not a rash, not dry skin, just a deep, unrelenting itch. No visible irritation, no obvious cause. Yet it's linked to a type of cancer that begins in the immune system. And here's where it gets interesting. Lymphoma, particularly Hodgkin's and non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, often shows up with immune-related symptoms before any physical tumors become obvious. One of the earliest signs: a chronic itch caused by the chemicals the cancer cells release into your bloodstream. To understand why your legs might itch when your immune system is compromised, we need to talk about histamines and cytokines, your body's chemical messengers during inflammation. These are usually helpful in fighting off infections. But when abnormal lymphocytes, the white blood cells involved in lymphoma, start replicating uncontrollably, they create an environment where inflammation is constant, even when there's no infection. This persistent low-level inflammation irritates the nerve endings near your skin, especially in the lower limbs where circulation is often slower in older adults. But here's the trap. Most people don't make this connection. Why would anyone associate an itchy leg with cancer? It doesn't sound logical. But medicine isn't always about logic. It's about patterns. And the pattern of unexplained, unresponsive itching in the shins showing up before lymphoma diagnoses has been observed again and again. Let me tell you about George, a retired math teacher, 75 years old. For 6 months, he struggled with what he described as an itch that felt like it came from the inside out. Every night, his shins burned with irritation. No rash, no new laundry detergent, no bug bites. Just that same maddening sensation, always in the same place. His doctor thought it was eczema, gave him creams. Nothing worked. It wasn't until a routine blood panel showed elevated white blood cell counts that they decided to dig deeper. A scan later revealed swollen lymph nodes in his chest. George had early-stage lymphoma. And his legs? They had been ringing the alarm months before. His story isn't unique. There's a growing recognition in the medical community that pruritus, the clinical term for itching, can be an important systemic clue, especially in hematologic cancers. It's not about being dramatic or paranoid. It's about being curious when your body behaves in ways that defy your usual patterns. And this is where your instincts come into play. Ask yourself, is the itch always in the same place? Is it worse at night? Have you changed anything in your routine? Soap, lotion, detergent? Is there a visible rash or irritation? If the answer to most of those is no, and it's been going on for weeks, it's time to ask better questions. The kind of questions that go beyond the skin. Because here's the thing about aging. Your body's alarm system changes. In your younger years, illness often presents loudly: fever, pain, lumps, dramatic weight loss. But as you age, your system becomes subtler, quieter. The signals don't vanish, they just whisper. And in many cases, those whispers sound like a scratch you can't explain. It's important to differentiate between the types of itch. Dry skin usually responds to moisturizers. Allergic reactions come with redness or bumps. But lymphoma-related itching? It's different. It's deep, persistent, almost neurological. People often describe it as a burning or crawling feeling beneath the skin rather than something happening on the surface. and it doesn't respond to topical treatments. You might also notice other subtle signs: fatigue that lingers, night sweats that seem out of place, unexplained weight loss that sneaks up on you. No one of these symptoms means much alone, but together, they tell a story your body is writing in real time, even if you haven't read the message yet. Still unsure? That's okay. You're not expected to self-diagnose cancer, but you do owe it to yourself to notice, to pay attention, and to advocate when something doesn't feel right. 2. The upper back. When the gut sends a message, it's an itch you can't quite reach, right between your shoulder blades, where your arm doesn't bend comfortably anymore. You've tried back scratches, changed your pillow, even swapped out your shirts, thinking maybe it's a tag issue, or maybe the air's just too dry. But no matter what you do, the itch lingers. It's not on the skin. It's not flaking red or rashy. It just is, nagging, invisible, and relentless. At first glance, you wouldn't think a phantom itch on your back could have anything to do with your pancreas. After all, how could something buried deep in your abdomen cause sensations in your upper back? But that's the kind of mystery the human body loves to present: confusing, indirect, and oddly poetic. Because in many cases, a persistent itch in the upper back is one of the earliest symptoms of something incredibly serious: pancreatic cancer. Now, before panic sets in, understand this. It's not about jumping to conclusions. It's about understanding how internal dysfunction often sends signals in unexpected ways. And the back, especially between the shoulder blades, is one of the strangest yet most consistent places people report unexplained itching in the early stages of bile duct obstruction, which is often caused by pancreatic tumors. Let's break this down. Your pancreas helps regulate digestion by producing enzymes and insulin. It also works closely with your liver through the bile ducts, which carry bile, a digestive fluid, into your intestines. When a tumor begins to grow in the pancreas, it may press on or block these ducts. That obstruction causes bile to build up in your system, and bile salts, chemicals normally processed and excreted, start circulating through your bloodstream. What happens next is almost poetic in its design. Your body, flooded with bile salts, begins reacting from the inside. These salts irritate nerve endings, especially in areas with high concentrations of sensory nerves. And the upper back, it's full of them. The result? A deep, unrelenting itch with no surface trigger, your body quietly begging for attention. That's what happened to Linda. A 70-year-old grandmother of 4, Linda started waking up every night around 3 a.m., scratching the middle of her back. It was odd. No new laundry soap, no visible rash, just a nagging sensation she couldn't ignore. She tried creams, antihistamines, even acupuncture. Nothing worked. When she finally went in for blood work, thinking she was just feeling tired lately, her doctor noticed elevated liver enzymes. That led to imaging scans, and those scans revealed a small tumor in her pancreas, already pressing against the bile duct. Linda caught it early, not because of pain or weight loss or jaundice, but because she paid attention to an itch. This story isn't rare. It's just rarely told. Why? Because we don't talk about itches. We minimize them. We shrug them off as insignificant. But for the aging body, the line between skin irritation and internal dysfunction isn't always visible. It's felt. What makes this particular symptom even more deceptive is its location. Your back is easy to ignore. it's hard to reach. Most of us don't inspect it regularly. And when an itch hits a spot you can't see, you're less likely to monitor how long it's lasted or how severe it really is. That's why pancreatic cancers, especially in older adults, can quietly grow for months, even years, before detection. The warning signs are there, but they come in soft, strange ways. Not pain, not lumps, but fatigue, changes in stool color, dark urine, and yes, an itch you can't shake. So how do you know when to worry? The key lies in pattern and persistence. If you experience itching in the upper back that doesn't change with environment or skincare, feels internal rather than on the surface, worsens at night, lasts more than 2 weeks, comes alongside fatigue, pale stools, or dark urine, then it's time to speak up. Not because you're overreacting, but because you're paying attention. And attention, in your later years, is the greatest form of self-care. The idea of itching as an early warning sign of pancreatic cancer is still not widely understood by the general public, and that's part of the problem. Medicine has long focused on what can be seen: tumors, inflammation, blood counts. But sometimes, the best clues lie in what can't be measured easily: sensations, changes in patterns, an itch that makes no sense but won't leave you alone. Pancreatic cancer is one of the deadliest cancers, not because it's the most aggressive, but because it's often caught too late. By the time pain appears, it may have spread. But that phantom itch, that's early. That's a red flag flying months before anything more alarming shows up. And listen, I know it's hard to bring up these things at a doctor's office. You feel like you're wasting their time. It's just an itch, you say. But how many times in your life have you ignored your instincts, only to wish you hadn't later? The people who catch their illnesses early aren't always the ones with the best insurance or the most tests. They're the ones who listen, who respect their bodies enough to speak up. Linda could have waited. She could have dismissed it. But she didn't. She gave her body the benefit of the doubt. So here's your reminder. Your back might not be lying to you. If something feels off, trust that feeling. Speak it aloud. And let science catch up to what your instincts already know. Because in the quiet discomfort between your shoulders, your gut might be sending a message. 3. The scalp. When the itch is in your blood, it starts like most minor annoyances do, with a light scratch on your head. Maybe it's dryness. Maybe it's the shampoo. You change brands. You hydrate. You double-check for dandruff. And still, it lingers. That crawling, tingling sensation that moves from one spot to the next, irritating, stubborn, and unexplainable. Now, if you're over 60, there's a good chance you chalk it up to aging skin. After all, dryness becomes more common, and the scalp, being exposed to heat, sun, and thinning hair, can easily become irritated. But here's what many don't realize. When that itch doesn't respond to scalp oils, anti-dandruff shampoos, or moisturizing treatments, and especially when there's no flaking or visible rash, it may not be about the skin at all. It could be your blood. Specifically, your blood's immune system, the network of cells and signals that defend your body from invaders, is sometimes the first area affected in certain cancers like leukemia. And in many cases, one of the earliest and most overlooked symptoms of blood cancer isn't fatigue or bruising. It's scalp pruritus, or unexplained itchiness of the head. Let's explore why. Leukemia, particularly chronic lymphocytic leukemia, CLL, causes abnormal white blood cells to accumulate in the bloodstream. These cells don't fight infections the way they're supposed to. Instead, they disrupt your body's natural balance, triggering persistent inflammation. That inflammation releases histamines and other immune signals, chemicals that, while intended to defend, end up irritating your nerves. And the scalp, rich in both blood vessels and nerve endings, becomes one of the most sensitive sites to this kind of internal chaos. But unlike skin conditions like psoriasis or seborrheic dermatitis, leukemia-related itch feels strange. It doesn't stay in one place. It's not relieved by washing. It doesn't flake. And worst of all, it seems disconnected from the surface entirely, like something buzzing just beneath the skin. Henry, a 73-year-old veteran, described it best. It felt like I had invisible ants walking across my head every afternoon. I thought it was my hat, or maybe my shampoo. I even shaved my head just to be sure. But the feeling stayed. Eventually, he went to his doctor, not for the itch, but for unexplained fatigue. A full blood panel revealed elevated white blood cell counts. A bone marrow biopsy confirmed it. Early stage leukemia. That phantom itch on his scalp? It had been the first signal. Now think about that. A man who felt fine otherwise, active and sharp, had one mysterious symptom, an itchy scalp, and that was enough to prompt a deeper look that likely saved his life. And here's where it gets more concerning. Many older adults never speak up about these sensations. They assume it's part of getting older, or worse, they feel embarrassed to bring up something so small. My head itches just doesn't sound like a medical emergency. But when it's persistent, unresponsive, and paired with other subtle signs like unexplained bruising, recurrent infections, or bone pain, it becomes a pattern. And patterns tell the story. It's not just blood cancers either. Skin cancer, particularly squamous cell or basal cell carcinoma, can also begin on the scalp, especially in areas where hair has thinned. At first, it might present as a small dry patch, a bump, or nothing more than an itch. But what makes it dangerous is that most people can't see their own scalp. So, unless you have a caregiver, partner, or hairdresser regularly checking, it's easy to miss early developments. And that's exactly why a persistent itch deserves attention. Because not everything invisible is harmless. You may not notice any other symptoms. There might not be pain. The skin might look completely normal. But if the itch refuses to go away after weeks of trying every topical solution you can think of, it's time to consider that the problem might be internal. Here's a way to think about it. Most surface itches have surface causes: bugs, dryness, detergents. They respond to surface solutions. But when an itch is internal, it's your nervous system's way of saying, look deeper. There's also the emotional toll to consider. An unrelenting itch is more than discomfort. It can disturb your sleep, drain your energy, and make you feel helpless. When it persists, it steals from your quality of life, which is reason enough to get answers. So what should you do? First, don't ignore the timeline. If the itch has lasted more than 2 to 3 weeks with no visible irritation, it's no longer minor. Second, pay attention to where and how the itch presents. Is it always in the same place? Does it worsen in the afternoon or evening? Does it feel like it's under the skin? Third, track any other symptoms, even subtle ones. Are you more tired lately? Getting colds more easily? Finding small bruises in odd places? All of these could be clues. And lastly, speak up. Ask your doctor for a blood panel, not just basic tests, but a comprehensive look at white blood cell counts, platelets, and markers for inflammation. You're not wasting their time. You're protecting your time, your future. Let me be clear. Not every itchy scalp means leukemia. Most of the time, it really is just dryness or product sensitivity. But the only way to know for sure is to investigate the patterns, not dismiss them. You know your body. You've lived in it longer than anyone. If something feels off, trust that feeling. You've earned the right to take even small signs seriously, and your life may just depend on it. 4. The chest, the hidden signal in breast or chest itching. There are places on the body we rarely question. The chest, for example, is a region we often associate with deeper threats: heart disease, tightness, lumps. But what if the most subtle sign, the earliest red flag, was not pain, but a persistent itch? Imagine this. You're going about your day when you feel an itch near your chest. Maybe it's right under the breast or around the nipple. You adjust your clothing, assume it's from your bra, or maybe sweat from a warm afternoon. You change fabric softeners. You try talcum powder. Still, the itch lingers, focused, deep, not easily soothed. Most people would dismiss it. In fact, most do. But that particular area, especially in older adults, is one of the most overlooked spots where persistent itching can signal something far more serious, like inflammatory breast cancer or nearby malignancies such as lymphoma in the chest wall or collarbone. This isn't a conspiracy or scare tactic. It's a quietly documented reality in oncology. For some patients, the very first sign of cancer in the breast or surrounding lymphatic regions isn't a lump. It's not a discharge. It's not pain. It's itching, the kind that doesn't move, doesn't respond to lotion, and doesn't come from any clear irritant. And that's what makes it dangerous, because it masquerades as something too small to care about. Let's talk about Ruth, a 69-year-old woman living in Arizona, active and healthy, who noticed a small, itchy spot on the underside of her right breast. She thought it was her bra, switched to a softer one. Then she blamed detergent, changed it. Then humidity. The itch continued. There was no rash, just warmth, a twinge, and a sense that something wasn't quite right. After months of waiting, she finally mentioned it during her routine checkup. Her physician noticed slight dimpling in the skin, barely visible. That led to imaging. And then the diagnosis: inflammatory breast cancer. Here's the frightening part. There was no lump, no pain, only that itch and the tiniest change in skin texture. Inflammatory breast cancer is especially aggressive because it often doesn't behave like traditional breast cancers. It doesn't form a hard mass deep inside. Instead, it spreads in sheets along the lymph vessels in the skin of the breast, which is why one of the earliest symptoms is often irritation, heat, or a persistent rash-like sensation. That's what causes the itch. The skin begins to react to what's happening just beneath the surface, long before any obvious signs appear. Now, this doesn't only apply to women. While breast cancer is far more common in women, men are not immune, especially as they age. And yet, male breast cancer is rarely talked about and often goes undetected. Why? Because we don't think of it. We don't even consider it. An itch on a man's chest near the nipple? It's blamed on shaving, sweat, or tight undershirts. But some of those itches are the earliest cry from a body trying to say, "Look here." There's also the question of nearby lymph nodes. especially under the arms or around the collarbone. These regions are rich with immune activity and drainage, and when tumors begin to grow, whether from breast tissue, lymph nodes, or other chest structures, they can press on nerves and cause itchiness on the surface, even when nothing is visibly wrong. So, how do you know when to worry? First, focus on location. Is the itch always in the same spot, under the breast, near the nipple, or around the chest wall? Second, evaluate duration. Has it lasted more than 2 weeks despite using creams, changing clothes, or improving hygiene? Third, observe your skin. Is it slightly warm to the touch? Thicker than usual? Maybe just a touch red or irritated, even without a rash? And lastly, are there other strange sensations in the area? Heaviness? Tightness? Or even just a subconscious awareness that you keep touching that same spot throughout the day? When a symptom lives quietly in your life long enough, you normalize it. You stop questioning it. But symptoms that persist are the body's way of asking for a second opinion, yours. It's not about becoming paranoid. It's about becoming informed. It's about learning the language of your own body, especially in your 60s, 70s, and beyond. Because the way your body communicates changes as you age. The dramatic warning signs of youth, sharp pain, swelling, sudden fever, may be replaced with quieter nudges, like a slow, stubborn itch that refuses to move. For women, this also means understanding that breast cancer isn't always the lump you're told to feel for. Inflammatory types can mimic rashes. Paget's disease of the breast can look like eczema on the nipple. And tumors near the chest wall may be completely hidden from touch. And for men who are rarely told to even check, an itchy patch, a thickened area of skin, or a persistent sensitivity near the nipple deserves just as much attention. Because cancer doesn't follow rules. It doesn't care about gender expectations or textbook symptoms. It simply grows quietly, steadily, until it meets resistance. Your awareness is that resistance. So what should you do if you feel this kind of persistent chest itch? Start with a skin exam. If there's no rash, try eliminating surface-level irritants, different bras, shirts, soaps, lotions. If the itch persists despite all that, don't wait. Schedule a clinical breast exam. Ask about inflammatory breast conditions. Request an ultrasound or mammogram, not because you're sure, but because you care enough to be sure. In the end, this isn't about focusing on the worst-case scenario. It's about avoiding it. And that begins with the courage to ask, could this mean something more? Because sometimes the first symptom of something serious isn't pain or swelling or blood. It's a feeling just under the surface telling you that something is off. Your body is wise. The question is, are you listening? 5. The genital and anal region, where silence is most dangerous. Let's talk about the one place almost no one wants to talk about. The area that makes people shift in their seat just hearing it mentioned. The anal and genital region. You see, we're willing to talk about back pain. We'll joke about aging knees. We'll bring up itchy legs or thinning hair. But mention discomfort down there. And most people shut the conversation down. It's too awkward, too personal, too taboo. And that's exactly why it's so dangerous. Because when something feels off in that region, especially persistent itching, most people, especially older adults, say nothing. They assume it's hygiene, or friction, or maybe just a side effect of aging. Some grab over-the-counter creams. Some switch underwear brands. Most just try to ignore it. But here's the uncomfortable truth. Persistent itching in the anal or genital area, particularly when there's no obvious irritation, no rash, and no clear cause, can be the first quiet symptom of certain cancers. Anal cancer, vulvar cancer, penile cancer, even skin cancer. And when it shows up, it rarely looks like what people expect. Let's start with anal cancer. For men and women over 60, especially those with a history of hemorrhoids or digestive issues, any discomfort near the rectum is usually brushed off as just a flare-up. But what many don't realize is that early-stage anal cancer often disguises itself as nothing more than a minor, persistent itch or sensation, one that doesn't go away with ointments or hygiene routines, one that lingers, one that slowly becomes more raw, more focused, and eventually more intense. Then there's vulvar cancer. Most women, especially after menopause, experience changes in skin texture and moisture, a little dryness here, a little sensitivity there. But when an itch becomes relentless, always in the same spot, always worse at night, never soothed by moisturizers, it needs attention. The skin may start to thin, it may appear slightly discolored, and still, it won't look alarming. That's what makes it so easy to ignore. Consider the story of Caroline. She was 71, active, and still working part-time when she started experiencing an itch near her outer genital area. At first, she thought it was just dryness from her incontinence pads. Then she tried changing her soap. Nothing worked. For nearly 9 months, the itching came and went, always in the same place, always worse after long days. When she finally brought it up during her annual physical, her doctor noticed an area of skin that looked just a bit shiny. A biopsy followed. The diagnosis: early-stage vulvar cancer. If Caroline had waited another year, it would have spread. For men, penile cancer is rare, but not rare enough to ignore. Early signs include small patches of redness, thickened skin, or a localized itch on the glans or shaft. Again, it rarely hurts. And that's the trap. Because we've been taught to only worry when something is painful. But cancer is not always painful at the beginning. It's quiet. It waits. It hides behind embarrassment and shame. And perhaps no place on the body is more protected by silence than this one. This isn't about making you uncomfortable. It's about helping you feel less afraid to speak up. Because silence helps diseases grow. Embarrassment creates blind spots. And blind spots let cancer move unchecked. Think of Eugene. He was 76 and had dealt with what he thought was hemorrhoid irritation for nearly a year. He tried creams, dietary changes, sitz baths. The itch remained. Finally, he mentioned it to a colorectal specialist. A scope revealed a lesion on the anal canal wall. It was cancer, treatable, but only because he finally said something. Now imagine how many people never do. And it's not just about cancer. Chronic itching in this region can also signal precancerous changes or swelling in nearby lymph nodes from other malignancies. The nerves here are sensitive and reactive, which means they often pick up on subtle internal changes before anything visible occurs. Here's what to watch for: an itch that stays in one exact area, skin that feels rough, shiny, or thinner than usual, burning or tingling that worsens at night, a sense of rawness or inflammation without rash sensitivity that doesn't respond to typical creams or hygiene improvements. Any of these signs lasting more than 2 to 3 weeks, they deserve attention. But even more importantly, you deserve to speak about them without shame. This is your body. You've lived in it for decades. And if there's ever been a time to give it your full attention, it's now. Because the cost of ignoring these symptoms isn't just physical, it's psychological. The constant doubt, the quiet suffering, the unspoken fear, all of it compounds until it robs you of peace, clarity, and options. So if you've been dealing with an itch in a place you're too embarrassed to mention, let this be your sign. You are not overreacting. You are not imagining things. And you are absolutely not alone. Bring it up to your doctor, to your spouse, to anyone who can help you investigate it properly. Because catching something early isn't about luck. It's about courage. And sometimes courage sounds like this. I've had this itch and it won't go away. Let's take a moment. Breathe. We've traveled through the silent signals of the body, 5 regions that most of us would never associate with cancer. The legs, the back, the scalp, the chest, the most private regions of all. And yet, in each of these places, real people, people just like you, felt something subtle, something small, something they nearly dismissed until they didn't. And that's what saved them. You see, this isn't a video about fear. It's about awareness, about learning a new language, your body's language, because it doesn't always speak in pain or lumps or fever. Sometimes it whispers through an itch that returns to the same place again and again, no matter what you try. If you're over 60, your body has been through decades of work, stress, healing, and change. And with age comes wisdom, yes, but also subtlety. Your warning systems don't scream like they used to. They nudge, they tickle, they leave breadcrumbs, not neon signs. And that's why awareness matters more now than ever. Let's recap what we've learned. Persistent itching on the lower legs may be linked to blood cancers like lymphoma, a reaction to inflammation you can't see but your nerves can feel. A phantom itch between the shoulder blades might be the first sign of pancreatic cancer, as bile salts irritate deep nerve networks before any digestive symptoms emerge. An itchy scalp with no flakes can precede signs of leukemia or skin cancer, driven by inflammation or immune disruption that doesn't touch the surface, but affects what lies beneath. Localized itching on the chest or near the nipple may be an early symptom of inflammatory breast cancer, especially when there's no lump, but a persistent irritation or subtle skin thickening. Itching in the genital or anal area, particularly if chronic and resistant to treatment, can point to anal, vulva, or penile cancer hiding behind silence and shame. What ties all of these together? Pattern, persistence, and the courage to pay attention. Because here's the truth. Doctors can only help you if you tell them what's happening. Imaging, labs, and scans are powerful, but they don't replace your voice. And too often, seniors talk themselves out of speaking up. They think it's just age, or they don't want to be dramatic, or they assume it'll go away. But here's what I want you to remember more than anything else. Small doesn't mean harmless. In fact, most of the time, big problems start with small whispers. So what can you do right now? Check in with your body. Are there any itches that haven't gone away in weeks? Any spots that feel strange, different, or out of place? Track the symptom. Write down when it started, what you've tried, and what makes it worse or better. Patterns matter. Share without shame. Your discomfort isn't an inconvenience. It's information. And your doctor wants that information to help you. Trust your instincts. You know your body better than anyone else ever will. If something feels off, it probably is. You don't need proof to start asking questions. And finally, educate and advocate. Share what you've learned today, not just with friends, but with children, spouses, caregivers. The more we normalize listening to small symptoms, the more lives we save before things get serious. You might think, what good is one video? But awareness doesn't spread through statistics. It spreads through stories. One woman catches cancer early because of an itch. One man saves himself a lifetime of suffering because he finally speaks up. One person watches this, connects the dots, and makes the call. That's the real power of noticing, of paying attention, of honoring the language of the body, not with panic, but with purpose. This video isn't meant to leave you afraid. It's meant to leave you prepared, empowered, armed with the quiet truth that your body always communicates. You just have to listen. So the next time you feel an itch that won't go away, remember, it might just be your second chance knocking. Will you answer?